What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We've got another Delorean video for you guys today. Still trying to get caught up. I swear, Martin and Steve are moving so fast, it's hard to keep these videos coming fast enough. And I know I said at the end of last video that this video was going to be all about the CNC parts, but I changed my mind. And this video is actually going to be all about the process for mounting the engine in this car. So let's get right to it. So the first step in getting the engine mounted into this car was to modify the cross member to allow the oil pan, which is right behind me, to fit. So I'm going to show you guys that first, and let's get into it. So it's time for Martin to start making the actual frame modifications that he needs to make this engine fit. So he's going to go ahead and cut the original subframe right here, just like we did in the last car. It's definitely pretty clear that this car is a bit less rusty here. You can still see a little bit of cracking here. There's probably a little bit of rust underneath that spot. But overall, definitely a bit better than the last car. But still, the same amount of work necessary to, box this all up and do the modifications necessary. So essentially, this entire, section right here is going to get cut out. But what Martin has to do is, strengthen up this front here, because if he cuts this piece out now, he basically loses all of the structural integrity of this entire rear frame, and everything's going to move and change and it won't fit anymore. So he's going to weld this up here and strengthen before he goes ahead and cuts this out. And then if you guys remember, basically the oil pan for the key engine sits right up against this. So now with that, front support, you guys can see that strengthening up the, whole cross member. Martin can now make the cut that he's going to. He's going to cut right along the top of that tape and then cut along this line and kind of cut that section out.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So in the first Delorean that we built, Martin actually MIG welded this rear cross member. Basically, this entire section is, remade and uses its own material to strengthen this rear cross member. And on the first car, it was MIG welded because of, this really thick coating that is on the entire rear frame of the car. And so on this car, Martin decided to make the choice to just grind more of that off, which took a bit more of his time. You can see all of it on the floor, but that allowed him to go ahead and TIG weld the entire rear cross member this time. So we have a lot cleaner and of course stronger welds. So that's nice. We're going to go ahead and start moving on to the engine mounts we ordered. Again, we're going to be using the Ferrari 355 engine mounts. So those are going to be going here. If you guys remember, we're going to be sanding this off next. Martin is dropping the engine and transmission in for the first time. Even though Martin, has the templates for the engine mounts and made them already last time, you can't just build those without the engine already being in place. That has to be done with the engine in place so you can, nail the placement 100%. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So Martin's going to get the engine and transmission kind of lined up, and then he can build the engine mount on the side of the frame here like he did last time, and then also build the transmission mount for the car as well. So again, just like last time, we are using the OEM Kia mounts, this bigger forged piece here. It's not forged, it's cast, isn't it? Martin's got the engine mounts done and has placed the engine back in the car. And now he can start to work on the transmission mounts for the Porsche gearbox up there. Now with the engine mounted, Martin can start to work on the transmission mount. Martin is going to make use of this original Getrag transmission mount that I actually used and just kind of fabricate his own. It's going to be going off of these plates here, which he's already made. They go to the frame and are bolted. So one of the big differences on this car versus the first DeLorean is the actual gearbox itself. So the gearbox in this car is rebuilt by G-Box and actually has an upgraded OS Geiken LSD in it instead of the OEM LSD that comes with the Getrag Porsche. So we're hoping that this, a little bit tighter aftermarket LSD will make it even better. And the rebuilt gearbox will hopefully, survive for an even longer amount of time with no problems. So this is the main tube that Martin is going to use for the transmission mount. He's going to bend it now.
It was literally as much bend I can get from this bender. Sure this was it.
Martin's got that tube bent for the transmission mount, but before he can go ahead and fabricate the rest of it, he has to put the shifter cables on and kind of make sure that the transmission mount will fit with the shifter cables in place. That's of course important. You can't shift without the shifter cables, so that's what he is doing now. So Martin has got the basic layout of the transmission mount all tack welded together. You guys can see he's got a couple little gussets and has these holes placed. And that way the placement of everything is done. Now he can take this off the car and finish welding everything and finish doing the gusset work that's necessary to strengthen it as much as it needs to be able to hold the transmission properly. Now the design for the transmission mount is relatively simple in theory. Of course, it's much harder to actually nail the placement of everything, especially factoring in the shift cables and the water lines are going to have to come down this later and all the other things that Martin has to think about. But the basic idea is this one tube that goes around the front of the transmission and then is tied into the frame on these two plates and then is tied into the original transmission mount that comes with the gearbox on these two plates here.
Okay.
So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. So now with the engine and transmission mounted, in the next video I promise we are going to cover the CNC parts, which include the intercooler end tanks, mounting some of the brake stuff. So you guys will see that soon, and we'll see you then.